In this video, I'm going to show you how to make an exploded view of the bearing assembly. What we'll use is a presentation file in Inventor to do that. But what I have open right now is my bearing assembly file. So it's a .iam. That's the extension for this guy. I want to show you how to orient this guy before you take it into a presentation file. If you look over here at your view cube, you can see that in the current orientation, front is right here. I'm going to pick on front and bring that view to me where I'm just facing it head on like that. If I move my cursor back to the view cube, you can see these little arrows, and those rotate either counterclockwise or clockwise. So I'm going to pick on the counterclockwise rotation and turn that to its side. At that point, I'm going to come to the corner of my view cube. You see that corner right there? I'm going to pick on that, and you can see the orientation that it turns my bearing assembly to. And what this is that's an isometric view where the top, the right, and the front all come together. Now your orientation might be different. It just depends on how you modeled your part. But at that point, I'm going to save this. And so when I build my presentation file, my assembly should come in this orientation, which just makes things a little bit easier. So I'm going to come over here and select right up here where this is where I can pick on new and start a new file. I'm going to pick on new, and the kind of file I want is a standard IPN. That's an Inventor Presentation file. I'm going to pick on that and choose create. So what Inventor does is it's going to open up a standard IPN, and it wants me to choose an assembly to place in there. So I have one named Bearing Assembly Example. I'm going to pick that, and I'm going to pick Open. And you can see that it placed the assembly in there in the orientation that I had just turned my assembly model to be in. So it just speeds things up a little bit if I do this. Now, the great thing about a presentation file is it gives us a way to create an exploded assembly of our assembly model without actually messing up our assembly. So we can pull these parts apart from each other without removing the constraints. In the presentation file, the constraints have been relaxed. So let me just show you how this works. The first thing I'm going to do is take the top and the sleeve and these nuts and bolts and everything and pull them out away from the bearing base that I have back here. So the way we do that, we pick on this tool right here which says tweak components. So select tweak components, and this guy's going to open up right over here, and what it wants you to do is to select all the parts that you want to tweak. So I'm going to come over here to the tree, and there's a caret right next to scene 1. I'm going to pick on that, and it tells me bearing assembly. I'm going to pick on the caret next to that one, and that's going to show me all of the parts that are in my assembly. So the ones I want to tweak are all of the parts with the exception of the bearing base. So what I'll do is I'm going to pick on sleeve right here, and then I'm going to hold down shift, and I'm going to come down here and pick at the bottom on plane washer. And that's going to select everything in between. Now with those selected, if you look right in here, you can see there are 3 arrows, and I can move these selected parts in the direction of any of those arrows, but the one I want to move them is out along this axis right here. So I'm going to pick on that and hold down and drag, and I'm going to drag it out until the sleeve is clear of the bearing base. And then I want to lock that in by coming over here and picking the check. Alright, now that I have that checked, what I can do next is I can pick on tweak components, and this time I want to get everything but the sleeve and the base. So there's the sleeve and the base up here, so I'm going to pick the bearing top. I'm going to hold down shift and pick at the bottom on the plane washer. I'm going to find my arrow again, and this time I'm going to pull these guys out until I can see some space between the sleeve and the bearing top, and I'm going to pick check. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to explode a washer and a bolt. Now when I pick on tweak, what I want to do is pull out this bolt and this washer right down here. So I'm going to pick on that guy to see which one that one is. You can see that it lit up over here in the browser, and I'm going to hold down shift and I'm going to go in there and pick on that washer. I'm sorry, but I got the bearing top, so I've got to, it's kind of hard sometimes. I just want that washer and I want that bolt. So I had shift down, I picked on the washer and I picked on that bolt, and you can see that they're lit up over here. You can see the arrows, and this time I'm going to take this arrow right here and just drag them in this direction here until they clear the front of the bearing top. I'm going to leave all of these guys in place. I only really need to explode one of these to get the point across for what I'm doing. And then I'm going to pick on the check right here. The next thing I want to do is take this washer and slide it down the bolt a little bit. So I'm going to pick on tweak, and I'm going to pick that washer. This time I don't have to get too fancy because I know I'm only moving one thing. And then I'm going to get on my arrow and I'm going to slide it down and set it about right there and pick the check. And at that point, I have my exploded assembly the way I want it to be. Now, I have an option over here. You see where it says tweaks? If I right click on this and I pick hide all trails, I can turn off those blue lines. If I want to keep those lines in there in my presentation file, I can keep those in there. Now, another thing I can do is I can pick a snapshot, and what will happen over here, a snapshot will be made named view 1. And let's say I wanted it from a different angle. I could choose new snapshot and it will put a new view 2 in, and I can actually put these views in to an Inventor IDW. When I place my views in there, I can just pick on the drop down right below the view name, and I can just select, you'll see view 1 and view 2 are options as soon as you insert the bearing assembly IPN. So that's what this guy is going to be saved as. I would do a file, save as, and I'm going to, in this case, it's taking the name of my assembly, which is bearing assembly example, and it's putting IPN on there, which makes it a presentation file. And all you need to do is save that. Now, what I can do next is I can start let's just start a new IDW. So standard IDW, and pick create. Now, you probably have a different prototype drawing that you might want to use for this, but I'm going to select base for my base view, and what I want to choose here is that bearing assembly IPN that I just made. So there it is right up here at the top, bearing assembly example IPN, and pick open. And I can drag that wherever I want. It's coming in at a scale right now of 1 equals 2, so it's a half scale. I could go 0.75, for example, and make it a little bit larger if I wanted to. I'm going to double click on that, go back to file, and if I want to show the trails, I can uncheck. Now, I had already turned my trails off so they didn't get captured, but you can see it says view 1 right up here. So let's do another one. Let's go to base, and this time this was that snapshot view. I'm going to pick on here. I'm going to pick view 2. And remember, my snapshot was pointed in this direction. I'm going to bring that guy up into here, and if I need to change the scale or the shading or anything, I can do that here. So what I have when I select OK, this is my IPN showing snapshot 1, and this is my IPN showing snapshot 2. Those were named view 1 and view 2 in the IPN. I'm going to go back to my IPN drawing, and you can see view 1 and view 2. Those are the ones that I've put into my IDW. And so if I want to add things like a parts list and balloons and all, I can just go to annotate, select parts list, select views. I can pick this view, pick OK, pick OK again. Sorry for that little ding you heard there, but you can see there is my parts list, and it is in the order that I placed those parts when I was originally putting those in. Now I want to show you something about this parts list. I'm going to right click on it and go to edit parts list style, And I'm going to take the heading for this, which is this right up here where it says parts list and part number and direction and all that. And I'm going to pick right here and I'm going to move that to the bottom, and I'm going to number from the bottom up. So any new parts are going to get added to the top. I'm going to pick that and I'm going to pick save and close, and you're going to see that this is going to update so that my parts list is moved, move it to here, down at the bottom, and then my heading is down here, and my part numbers now are going uphill. And over here I can go to balloon and I can pick on one of these parts, pick, right click, continue, and it will place my part, and the part number 3 here should align to part number 3 down here, which is the bearing top. Now sometimes what we want to do, I'm going to press escape, so we're going to right click on this, we're going to go to edit the balloon style, and we're going to split this balloon, and let me show you what I mean by that. I'm going to go up here and I'm going to pick the circular 2 entries, and the entry on the top is going to be the item number, and the entry on the bottom will be the quantity, which is the number of those parts that is in the assembly, and I'm going to pick save and close. So this is part number 3, and there are 1 of those in the assembly. But if I come up here to balloon now and I choose the bolt, and I pick right there and right click and pick continue, this is part number 4, and there are 4 of those in the assembly, and I'm going to go back to the balloon. I'm going to pick on the washer, move it out here. I like to kind of make these leaders parallel to each other. I'm just going to eyeball that, but I'm going to pick, right click, continue, and there's part number 5, and of course there are 4 washers. And so if you look over here, part number 5, that is my washer, part number 4, that's my hex bolt.